From the News Channel 5 Network, this is SportsLine.
Hello and welcome to SportsLine on News Channel 5 Plus. I'm Steve Wrigley, your host for the next hour. Whole lot of opportunity to light up those phones and talk about what Peyton Manning means to you as a Tennessee Volunteer, maybe what he means to you as a Colts fan or a Broncos fan. And we're going to, throughout the hour, we're just going to kind of intersperse some great clips from that emotional press conference yesterday out in Denver. A press conference so big and so important that you had to RSVP just to be able to cover it. I have never heard of that happening with any professional sports athlete upon retiring. Peyton got very emotional during the day, talking about what the game meant to him, what he spoke about Tennessee, talked about his time in Indianapolis, his time in Denver, going out a winner, what the future holds. So stick with us for the next hour. I'm Steve Wrigley, and I used to watch this show all the time when Hope Hines would host this here on News Channel 5, so it's a privilege to be sitting in this studio with the chance to talk to you folks. The phone number to call is 615-737-7767. Let's talk about Peyton Manning and what he means to football. Where is he on the list of all-time greats? I've read some columns by some local guys who suggest that Peyton Manning is arguably one of the top 3 quarterbacks of all time. We can get into all that. You can tell Peyton's stories. Maybe you bumped into him sometime when you were a student at Tennessee, or maybe you remember when he used to bring the Indianapolis Colts down here and take on those Steve McNair-led Tennessee Titans. Those were some great matchups we were treated for. And boy, you got to hope that someday soon the Titans get back to playing that level of football, because it was never any better than it was in the late 1990s and the early 2000s when Steve McNair and Eddie George and the Titans were playing good football, and Peyton Manning would come down here with those great offenses, and they would match up with those tough Tennessee Titan defenses. So let's see if we can get the phone lines ringing. It's 615-737-7767. We'll talk about Peyton Manning and what he means to you. But until then, let's hear from Peyton's press conference yesterday, where he talks about how he feels about the game of football.
Someone thoroughly exhaust and experience, they can't help but revere it. I revere football. I love the game. So you don't have to wonder if I'll miss it. Absolutely, absolutely, I will.
He had to revere the game of football because he grew up playing it with his 2 brothers and watching his dad Archie just get knocked around as the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. He said yesterday in that press conference too that his favorite football player was his father Archie, but his second favorite player was good old Dolphin Dan Marino, who never won a Super Bowl in his career for all the things that he did. Peyton Manning ranks right there at the top for the all-time greats. I mean, he's got just a bunch of records that might never be broken. I mean, he threw over 500 touchdown passes. His single-season standard of 55 touchdown tosses in 1 year should last a very long time, unless they go to a couple more games. They add a couple games to the schedule there in the National Football League. And ironically, reading up on him yesterday, I was amazed to find out that one of the things he never did, he never threw a touchdown pass in an overtime football game. Shows you how important the kickers are, right, in the NFL in deciding who wins those things. But Peyton Manning, nobody had more fourth-quarter comebacks than Peyton Manning did. Nobody had more wins, 200 for the career, edging Brett Favre by 1, and boy, what a win that was. That game, when they won that Super Bowl, let's light up the phones, let's talk about this. Peyton Manning didn't win that last Super Bowl to get the record to 2-2 in Super Bowls, but I think his desire and the way he played the game and the way he motivated those Denver teammates, that drove everybody else to want to win this one. Of course they wanted to be Super Bowl champions on their own, but I think just sending out Peyton Manning as a winner is what drove Denver to beat Carolina in that Super Bowl just last month. Other great moments from the press conference yesterday. You know, he played a long time in Indianapolis, and I didn't think he had anything left in the tank. And really the numbers would say that Peyton Manning really wasn't that good the last 4 years, but he did manage to get Denver to 2 Super Bowls. There was the debacle against Seattle, but he ended up kind of willing his team to win that one against Carolina. Great defensive effort, really, against Cam Newton is what settled that score, because he was 1 for 14 on third down conversions. That's not going to win you many football games, but the defense did come through. But you know, he got basically run out of Indianapolis. Basically, they said, look, we'd rather be bad for a year and have a shot at getting another quarterback for the future, which they did manage to get in Andrew Luck. But Peyton Manning was pretty much pushed aside and found a home in Denver. But he still has very fond memories of those times in Indianapolis. So let's take a second and listen to Peyton reflect on his time playing for the Indianapolis Colts and some of those great AFC South matchups when he would play against the Tennessee Titans.
When I was drafted by the Colts, Indianapolis was a basketball and a car racing town. But it didn't take long for the Colts to convert the city and state of Indiana into football evangelists. We ended my rookie season 3-13, and in the process I set the NFL rookie record for interceptions, a record that I still hold today. Every year I pull for a rookie quarterback to break that record. Andrew Luck, Matthew Stafford, Eli Manning, Cam Newton. I still kid Eli that he would have broken it if he had started all 16 games. In the beginning of my time in Indy, the team's struggles were agonizing. My grandfather would call me weekly to ask if his favorite announcers, John Madden and Pat Summerall, would be broadcasting our game. Pawpaw, I'd say, we're only 2-8 right now. We're playing the 3-7 Bengals. Madden and Summerall don't broadcast those kinds of games. Fast forward to my second year when we had gotten things going a little bit. We were playing the Dallas Cowboys, including Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, and Deion Sanders. I called Pawpaw. Guess what? Madden and Summerall are broadcasting the game. He said, I can't believe it. He was elated. He was very proud. And we beat the Cowboys that week. And we let the world know that the Colts had arrived. Make no mistake about it. We were coming. And we went on to do some phenomenal things, like winning at least 12 games 7 years in a row. And, of course, winning Super Bowl 41. And I was truly honored and proud to be a part of it.
Peyton Manning reflecting on his time in Indianapolis as the quarterback of the Colts. That rough start at that rookie year sure blossomed into a fun career to watch. When we would bring those teams down here and take on the Tennessee Titans and Steve McNair. That's when football was as good as it's ever been in this city, really. When those Titans teams were taking on the Colts, and that year that the Titans went to the Super Bowl, that Super Bowl run went right through Indianapolis and then down through Jacksonville. And boy, it sure would be nice to see the AFC South become one of the IT divisions again in the NFL. Okay, we've got our first caller on the line. Let's go to Philip. Go ahead, Philip. What's your take on Peyton Manning's career and what he meant to the game?
My take is he's completely overrated. You cannot ignore.
Hold on a second. I can't let that go anywhere. Well, tell me which part of his legacy is overrated. He's got nobody's won more football games. That's the first benchmark for a quarterback. Nobody's thrown more touchdown passes in a career. That's the second benchmark for a quarterback. And the only part that's overrated, I think, is that he's only one game over 500 for his playoff career. That's the only part that you can say. But overrated, I don't know overrated fits in that one, Philip.
So you're a fantasy football fan?
No, I've never played it down in my life.
This guy was so good in the regular season. 9 times, this man took his team to the postseason and lost in game 1. And he had phenomenal regular seasons. He did not have the second part of the brain for a quarterback that when it gets to postseason, what you have to do to lead your team to victory. He couldn't get over the
define
hurdle.
that, though. Explain that. I can't just let that go, Philip, because the second part of the brain, people marvel at his brain. Like his brain, I will give you that he was not a good playoff quarterback, but I think that goes more along the lines of when you get to the postseason, it's like in baseball or in any sport, a bunch of really good players can shut down one player. And I think that's what Denver did to Cam Newton this year in the Super Bowl. So I get it. Like I'm on board. I agree with you. The playoff record is terrible. To be one of the all-time greats, you have to be more than one game over 500. But I think that when you get to the NFL playoffs, it's good teams, good schemes, good coaches beat one outstanding player. And I think if he ever made a mistake, it was he had so much offensive firepower that they never maybe spent enough money on the defense. They had a couple of big big-time players like Freeney and you know, the rest of the names kind of slip my mind right now. But I think they maybe should have spent more on defense, and his playoff record would have been better. But not overrated. I don't think he's overrated at all. Is he?
Well,
We're okay.
The sports media can give him all the MVPs they want to. I could care less about that. I could care less if he got 5 MVPs. Those are people voting on a season prior to the season coming to an end. And this guy, you got to look at a quarterback. Does he have legs? Does he have an arm? Does he have heart? Does he have a great mind as far as understanding the game? What kind of mind does he have in the postseason?
Have you heard what people have said about him? I mean, no.
Kind of quarterback. And Peyton Manning was pathetic in the postseason. The 2 Super Bowls that he won, and congratulations, you won 2.
You beat the Bears. Yeah, you beat the Bears in Carolina.
Peyton Manning had nothing to do with the 2 Super Bowls that they won.
Well, I know he had something to do with the one that they lost against New Orleans with the interception that he threw that was returned for a touchdown. But listen, I mean, I agree that the postseason record should be a benchmark, but you can't say that he's overrated, Philip. I mean, okay, so who's better out there?
Troy Aikman, much better.
Look what Troy Aikman had. Troy Aikman had one of the greatest receivers in Michael Irvin, probably I think one of the top 3 backs of all time in Emmitt Smith. He had a great coach in Jimmy Johnson. Peyton played for 4. I can't believe that I'm sitting here defending Peyton Manning because I've always been one of the guys that had the same problem with his career that you do, and that's the postseason. But he went to 4 different Super Bowls with 4 different coaches. And he's the only quarterback to do that. And he's the only quarterback to win 2 Super Bowls with 2 different teams. I'd like to hear some other people at home get on the phone and maybe keep Philip listening to the end of the show by refuting some of those arguments. But Peyton Manning was a student of the game. He was as good as he got the most out of his effort, out of his abilities. He was a student of the game. People wouldn't just be saying the great things about him if they didn't believe that about him, Philip.
If you're going to say, well, Troy Aikman had this, and I don't want to just talk about Troy Aikman. There's several quarterbacks, numerous quarterbacks.
Terry Bradshaw called his own plays. Terry Bradshaw was also part of a dynasty and had a great head coach in Chuck Noll.
Don't give me Troy Aikman had Michael Irvin and Emmitt Smith, because if you do that, I'm going to say, yeah, he did. And look what he did in the regular season, and look at what he did in the postseason with those players. Peyton Manning put up ungodly numbers in the regular seasons with the players he had. He made people around him. When it came to the postseason, why could he not win with those players that he dominated with in the regular season? That's Peyton Manning's fault. Nobody else.
Well, Philip, I think I explained that to you, though, is that when you get to the playoffs, good coaching, good schemes, and a lot of good players. I'd rather have a lot of really good players. I'd rather have 5 or 6 really good players than one great one and a couple of good ones, because it gets to be a numbers game. You could kind of compare Peyton to the Atlanta Braves of the 90s, who had all these great regular season stats, but they only won one World Series, and that's because when you get to crunch time, when you get to where they hand out the hardware, a good scheme, good coaches, and a lot of really good players can always beat one star. So, Philip, hey, my phone lines aren't ringing up at all yet, so we're going to take a break right now, and you and I, we can talk about things later, too, or we can listen to some more Peyton Manning. But you're watching SportsLine. I'm Steve Wrigley here on News Channel 5+.